I'm back. And boy, do I have a story to tell. Gather around, ladies and gents. This one might be a wild one. It's been a long time. If you've been consistently listening to this podcast, it was painfully obvious when it went silent. Maybe you wondered what happened. Maybe you assumed I quit. Maybe you moved on. And I don't blame you for any of that. But I'm back now. And I owe you the truth, the actual truth about where I've been and what happened. This episode is going to be somewhat different from previous episodes, if you can't already tell. It's deeply personal, though, and it's a little messy, but it's a foundation for everything that's coming. Because the reason I disappeared is also the reason everything changed. So welcome again, everyone, to the Scowl Method podcast. I guess this is episode number 34, and it's been a little bit, right? So I last left. I was going, I guess episode 33 was about fasting, I believe. I think it was about fasting. But I left you all in the midst of whatever, however you want to say it, of a lot of attacks. I was under attack, right? And there's just all of these weird, strange things happening, especially when it came to me trying to do something good, and it just, things would fall apart. Now, let's fall back a little bit, just a little bit. I'm not one to overly spiritualize anything, right? I'm not going to tell you that every single bad thing that's happened in my life was because of the devil or demons or whatever. But this one was strange. This one was coordinated. It felt very, very coincidental, and I'm not really big on coincidences. Again, sometimes what happens is, you get to the consequences of, some of the choices that you made. So some of the bad things that happen in our lives, it doesn't always have to do with some spiritual thing, right? It's just sometimes it's, you made a decision, you made a bad decision, and there are the consequences of that bad decision. But like I said, this one seemed way too coordinated for that. This one seemed way too coincidental, right? When I'm about to take a leap in progress, or when I'm about to help someone else take a giant leap in progress and almost to a point of becoming a completely different person, the attacks really just, they picked up. Whereas like my body was attacked, my business was attacked, my livelihood was attacked, my family was attacked, and they're just things, one thing after another. If this were in like secular terms or whatever, it would just be, I just had a string of really bad luck months. That was for the majority of last year, for the majority of 2025. So there's something there, but I was going through all these attacks, and I made it my business to start to pray and fast more and do all of these things, right? And then life kind of collapses again. So it was September 10th of last year, and regular day, getting ready for work and all that fun stuff. So I was, sleep. I get up early in the morning, obviously, and my phone was going off at like 5:27 in the morning, and it was still, and I remember this super clearly because like It was 3 minutes before my alarm was supposed to go off. So I knew it wasn't my alarm, right? But my phone would only go off if it's for, family. So mom, dad, brother, wife. And I guess now my son, now that he has a little cell phone, which, that's another story. But anyway, my phone was going off. That's the point. And I don't even see on the screen or anything like that. I just hear the noise and I kind of go to stop it as if it's my alarm at first. But then I'm realizing, I'm like, wait, ooh, it's not time yet. So I pick up the phone and it's my brother. And he's just like panting, like he's out of breath. And I just say, like, hello, obviously, like, hey, what's up? What's going on? And all he said was, it's dad. So at that point, I get ready, I run, I get some clothes on, and I run down to my parents' place. And on my way there, they're about maybe an hour away or so from where I live. And I went and on the road, and I called my brother back, and he's telling me about how EMTs are trying to resuscitate my dad, and they've been trying for a long time. And he's saying, and he's still kind of frantic, so I'm talking to him to calm him down a little bit, and he's telling me what's happened, and so he was trying pretty hard to. He was performing CPR, and he believes he, cracked or broke one of his ribs, and but Dad still wasn't coming to. So the EMTs were still working on him, and they basically worked on him all the way until I got there, which is kind of a long time. So I pull up, and I can't pull into the driveway because there's ambulances and cop cars and everything all over the place. And so I pull up on the street and in front of the house, and I start to make my way into the house, and that's when I see them pulling. Oh, they basically rolling my dad out on a stretcher, and they're rolling him into the ambulance, and he wasn't moving. But the strange thing was, like, I had this thought, like, well, he's not in a body bag, so he must be all right. And it's just one of those weird things that you think. But I get in the house. Even before that, actually, it was just this one officer, kind of just looked at me and was just like, "Hey, are you the son?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm the son." And he just kind of like escorts me to the front of the house through all the commotion, I guess. And he wouldn't look me in the eye, but he looked sad. And I'm like, okay. So I get in there and, listen, I definitely didn't need a cop walking me up to my mom and dad's place at all. But, it is what it is. I can understand the situation. And, there's some weirdos out there that'll try and do something stupid around that time anyway. But whatever. That's another story. So I get into the house and I look at my mom and my brother, and they're not. I've never seen them like that before, right? But they look shell shocked. And then, we go through this process, and we have to eventually get to the hospital, right? And after they explained like the whole story to me about what happened, I th- I think I knew, you know, it's just that's a hard thing to come back from. What he went through and what it was, and so anyway, we get to the hospital, and I dropped them off at the emergency room, or the emergency room entrance, right? Emergency entrance, whatever. And then I start to drive around a little bit looking for parking. The thing is, I was clearly stalling, right? Because as more time went on, I kind of just knew. But I was driving around looking for a garage to park in, even though the emergency room, that emergency entrance, they have valet parking, right? So I just had to drop the vehicle off and go on in there. But I obviously wasn't ready yet. But eventually I get there. I get in the emergency room and I see my brother kind of standing up, leaning against the wall, and my mom surrounded by at least 5 different nurses. And as soon as I step in there, everyone looks at me. And it's just one of those things where it's just like you see it in movies or you see it on shows, and it's one thing, but like, yeah, to live through it is something completely different. And I was dreading hearing anything to the sound of like he didn't make it or he passed or something. I just didn't want to hear it. But sure enough, that's what the nurse said. And I broke. I don't think I've cried that much with that much intensity ever in my life. But just like that, my dad was gone. And in that moment, a lot of things that I was concerned about, a lot of things that I was stressed about, there were just a lot of things that did not matter anymore. And then all the while, these attacks, you would think that they would stop, but they just changed. And my dad passing away opened up the door for even more to come. And I'm not saying that my dad passing away is an attack. Not at all. But things were surely different after he passed away. Things definitely changed, both externally and internally, right? Things definitely changed on the inside. And I'll go more into that as we go along. Because now I'm faced with another decision. You know, my dad passing away is only the second real death that I've experienced. And some call me blessed. But the first one was my grandmother. And I didn't really take that well. In fact, I buried that, all of the emotions. I buried the grief. I buried that, and I tried to work my way through it. And what I mean by that is I threw myself into my occupation. I threw myself into working tirelessly, relentlessly. In past episodes, I talked about how I became this pit bull in the corporate world. And a large reason that happens because my grandmother passed away. I didn't deal with it. And the bad part, the worst part maybe in that is that I buried everything, but it all came out. It all came out in a really bad way where like I basically just burnt out and I broke down pretty bad. So I knew at this point with my dad, I couldn't do that again. My wife, the boys, they couldn't go through that. I couldn't put them through that. So I had to find a way to deal with it actively. So I, under the advisement of many people in general, some friends, some not friends, some just random passerby people, and others are, some clients, things like that. I decided that I needed to get away and actually deal with this stuff. So I ended up going to this cabin in the it sounds crazy, cabin in the woods in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of like somewhere in Pennsylvania, and there was nothing else around. There was no TV there. There was Wi-Fi, of course. That's fine. I mean, everything has Wi-Fi now, but I had my phone on emergency only, and I went to this cabin to somehow find peace. And I did. I was there and I had my Bible, my concordance and lexicons, and I had this one book with me by Leonard Ravenhill, Why Revival Tarries. Really good book. I ended up reading that thing cover to cover in the time that I was there. And if you ever bored one day and and you're concerned about the church and the state of the church, that's a really good book to read. Because there's a lot of things that he was calling out in that book that was written decades ago that's actively happening now. There's way too much compromise in the church, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I ended up going to this cabin, and I was finally able to, let my mans go, let my homie go. I grieved. I I grieved. Um, and I was able to kind of figure out what I was actually feeling, right? Yes, I felt grief. I felt sadness, intense sadness, but there was also this little bit of regret. And that was unexpected. You know, like my dad and I, we wanted the same things, generally speaking, right? We wanted everybody around us to be well. And we just went about things very differently. And because of that, a lot of times we butt heads. And what I had to work through, and I guess what I'm still trying to work through, I guess, is that I never really had that chance, or rather, I never took the opportunity to tell him that I understood him and that I respect him and that I loved him no matter what. And that's an interesting thing because it's just like, well, that's your dad. You should always be able to. Yeah, but yeah, I guess I never took those chances or took those opportunities. But I was there and I was able to find peace. And the cabin I was saying that was it was beautiful. It basically was a cabin and then there was a creek and it was right there and nothing else. I mean, the wildlife there was interesting, even though I got chased down by a raccoon. But that's another story. There's stories on top of stories here, y'all. Um, but I was able to find that little bit of peace and move on. My father's death didn't teach me just about grief. It started a cascade of life changes that I'm still walking through. Because when you face death in such a real and visceral way, you start asking different questions. So, part of what happened here, I get back from this cabin and, there's all of these things that cascaded from the death of my dad and the changes that happened on the inside first. One of those changes was that I left my church. And it was a long time coming, unfortunately. And let's put it this way. I my dad passed away and I got maybe a few text messages. Maybe, right? Maybe I had a couple side conversations, but the general consensus was no one really cared. All but one guy, right? And that's actually the pastor of the church, Franklin Gilliam. That's my road dog. But he, outside of the regular Sunday service stuff, whatever, he would call often to check up, to talk, to pray. And see, that's the thing. He was the only one that would call to pray with me. And that's where, as a Christian, that's one of the easiest W's to be had. It's easy to say, oh, I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to put you on my list. And we're going to, yeah, okay, yeah, absolutely. I'll pray for you. But the easiest thing to do is actually to be there with that person and pray with them. How much more would it mean if you sat with them and prayed with them? And then you could tell by the tone of my voice changing a little bit, it drives me up a wall how some Christians are. And this is not me, and please don't mistake my words for me coming at somebody directly, because I see it all over the place. And my situation is not necessarily unique. Pastor Franklin was there praying with me. That whole event, that time, that thing where the church in general, the congregation pretty much dropped the ball. That's what kind of led to me eventually taking my family and leaving. And they probably have no idea. Oh well. But I mean, it's like, and I'm not going to get into, you know what? You know what? Yeah, no, I'm going to get into it. Let me get into it. The church really, four main functions of the church, four basic functions of the church. And if you don't have this stuff, you ought to be working towards these four things. Number one, the church has to be a house of prayer, right? How you can't be a church, you can't be a house of prayer if you don't have your doors open on days other than Sunday. Let's set that aside real quick. The next thing is really, you should find sound biblical teaching in the church, right? That's another big pillar. That almost goes without saying. To break it down even more, sound biblical teaching, I'm talking about like proper theology, not politics, not social justice, not gender, like all of these other things that we apply, that humanity seems to apply to theology. Scrap all of that, right? Sound biblical teaching straight from the Bible, adding nothing else to it, taking away nothing from it. That's the way it should be. That's two, right? So first thing is it has to be a house of prayer, which means it has to be open, which means people need to be praying in it, right? Two, you have to have a pastor who's preaching, or a preacher who's preaching, reverend is preaching, whoever it is preaching sound biblical doctrine. Solid. They have to be solid in their theology. Full stop, right? The third one, it has to be a place where fellow believers can gather and support fellow believers. So it's just like, okay, so it has to be a place where believers can gather with believers and support one another through everything, through all of it. Again, full stop. The last one is just as important, but it's called to be that, lighthouse on the hill, right? Meaning it's the place where both believers and non-believers, where they can go to receive help, assistance, support. So in other words, the church should be reaching out to the community that it's in to help people, whether that be by food, book bags, whatever it may be, clothes, whatever it is, counseling, name it. They should be there to help support that for the community that it's in, right? I thought at some point, I thought that was a given. Like every church has that. Not every church has that. So this has nothing to do with, he's just church hurt, whatever is rolling out. You're missing the basic functions of a church. That's why I left. And I don't think I would have had my father not passed away. Again, him passing away made me look at everything very differently. New perspective now. So that was one of the big changes. Just one. So listen, I've been in corporate America for the greater part of 20, whatever, it's 20 plus years. And after all that time, I'm finally saying I'm out. So I'm leaving corporate America in, I guess, a few months. And it's crazy. After years and years and years of climbing a particular ladder, of doing great work, right? Of spending countless hours on trying to build this career, I'm calling it quits. And again, like I said, this is part of the cascade here. You know, my dad passes, and I'm like, what am I doing that actually matters? And it's like, I'm sitting here in this job, in this corporate place, this corporate office, and you know, they're trying to bring you back even more. And so they want more of your time, but they're not giving you anything more for it, of course. And it's just like, oh, you know, we want to build a particular culture, but it's just like, that's not how you build a culture. That's how you advance a culture. You should already have a culture built within your company before you start calling everybody back to it. What are you calling everybody back to? But I have my own viewpoints on that whole thing, right? I have my whole a whole slew of different viewpoints on remote work, or, you know, working in the office, this, that, and the third. I have a whole bunch of things, and I haven't really talked about it concerning corporate America, the corporate world in general. I have not said nearly as much as I really wanted to, because I'm actively, before still in a job and still in the whole thing. So, little by little, that's going to come out now, right? Because again, I'm leaving, and it's one of those things where, it's a scary move. It's a scary move, but it's a necessary one, right? I'm spending so many hours building someone else's empire, all for a paycheck and a title. That's not life to me. And look, more power to you if you're called, because there are some people who are called to be in that type of position, to be in corporate America, to do their thing. That's not my calling anymore, right? It really just came down to what do I want to build that means something, that actually means something. And it's just not padding someone's pockets. Because the vast majority of corporate America is padding someone else's pockets. And granted, that's not even where I took the issue. Where I took the issue is the fact that it's twisted in a way that makes you depend on the little crumbs that you get for padding someone else's pockets. But again, I don't want to get too deep into that yet. That's another episode. That's definitely another episode later on down the line. I realized that we just don't have as much time as we think we did. So me leaving corporate America is a time thing. Not a pockets thing, but you get what I'm saying. It's more of a time thing. My dad, he passed, and he got the chance to do a lot of things he wanted to do. He got a chance to use the skills that he had and the skills that he accrued to serve God. And you can't be mad at that. But I know there were other things he wanted to do, and there are other things he wanted to see. He just ran out of time. And I mean, I'm telling you, I just have this newfound sense of urgency with everything. All the things that I've been sitting on, I'm just going to do them. Actually, I'm actively doing them now. All the ideas that I talked myself out of, I'm just going to go do them. All of the time I wasted stressing about something that at the end of the day won't even really matter. Yeah, so if you can't tell by now, things have definitely changed within me here. But yeah, we just don't have as much time as we think. Yeah, we definitely don't. We definitely don't. And it's one of those things where it's just like, look, I had to think about it a little bit. I had to think about it in the sense that like, look, I needed to start to get my life together. I needed to do what I was actually called to do. I needed to fix the things that were broken. And here's the thing, right? There's certain things that I have, control over, and there's certain things that God has full control over. And I'm like, listen, I got to get busy. I got to get active in getting better and hope and pray that he blesses my efforts as I go along. Because, like, look, death is a clarifying force. It shows you what matters. It shows you what matters, and it forces you to be honest. It strips away all pretense, and it forces you to take a raw, real look at yourself and things around you. So that's what I did. And this is what I came up with. So I'm actively walking this path, doing what I'm supposed to do, walking this path, right? Because there's no time like today. And I heard that phrase before, there's no time like the present. And I kind of just shishi poo pooed it. Like, it is what it is, whatever. But there's really, all you have is right now. And if I'm really going to operate by faith, if I'm truly going to say that I'm lining up by faith right now, then I got to get busy. And that's what I told myself. Faith requires a lot of action. Faith doesn't require you sitting there doing nothing, right? Nothing happens there. And remember what I was telling you, faith is based on evidence. Don't listen to people when they tell you, it's like, oh, faith is a blind belief. It's not. Especially not biblically. Faith is based on evidence. It's just enough of a breadcrumb to carry you through to say, like, okay, this is going to end up being that. Again, and that's also why the comparison is of faith to a mustard seed. Not the size, but the growth pattern of a mustard seed. A mustard seed basically is a small little seed that grows deep, 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 tremendous roots, and you see a little bit at the top. You look at a mustard plant, it doesn't look like it has such deep roots. So we're called to have faith like a mustard seed. Again, not the size of. Eliminate that. But that little mustard seed is evidence. It was like, oh, well, it could turn out to have really deep roots. It could turn out to be very vibrant and have vitality and grow. But all I see right now is a seed. All you see right now is the evidence. But I'm talking too much about that. So basically, at the end of the day, I determined to keep it pushing, to do all the things that I was called to do, and to do it now, to start building, and really put my faith where my mouth is, right? Like, I say all these things, and I help all these people to get to the point where they're operating at their best, and I can't neglect myself. and I'll be no good for anyone else. So I'm on this path. So what am I building? What am I building? And I keep alluding to it now, right? Well, in a few short weeks, the SCAL Method, Your Guide to Total Being Fitness, the book that I've been working on that I told you about a long time ago. Well, sometime last year. Maybe it's not that long ago, but sometime last year. The book is done, and the book is coming out April 28th, right? Along with the book, I have a course, the SCAL Method course, that teaches you about, again, all the 4 arenas, heart, mind, body, soul, how to train each of those areas, how to become better in each of those areas, how they all interplay with each other. How do you become this total being, not lacking anything in any arena? I even give you 2 extra arenas when it comes by endurance. We talked about that before, or strategic discomfort, aka endurance, right? Same thing there. And then I have this 1 chapter on relationships, because that's the greatest test, the testing ground for your total being integration, really. So we have the book coming out, we have the course coming out. Eventually, really, really soon after this podcast releases, I'll be dropping a 108 question assessment to see your current state. Like, you'll be able to tell exactly where you are in all of those arenas and all of those sections. And then we could probably have some fun with that, right? There's 52 different archetypes that are possible from this assessment. And it really breaks down where you're strong and where you're weak. And I will straight up give you a few tips to improve on wherever you're lacking. Then after that, I'm finalizing the SCAL Wellness package, which I think is going to help out a lot of people. I partnered up with a few labs. We'll be able to, run tests and come up with this program that'll really dial in a lot of the non-workout type things like supplementation and things like that. And it will really be able to pinpoint and rectify a lot of different issues that we all have, right? We all have something going on that we can improve on, right? And that's coming out soon. It's a one-of-a-kind type program here. And then I'm also building the SCAL Method app. And that is so unique. And I'm gonna drop more tidbits of what it's about as we go along. But you have not seen anything like this app on the market anywhere. You have not seen this anywhere. Point blank, period. It's a lot of things at once. But at its base, at its core, it's a fitness app. But it's just a fitness app and so much more. and so we're building that too. So there's a lot of things that we're working on now that will be available to you all really soon. Really, really soon. So for those of you who are new to the SCAL Method podcast, let me explain just really quick what we do here, right? This isn't just for marketing. This isn't for, at one point in time, I was really concerned about how many subs I get and how many views I get and all that fun stuff. I'm not worried about that. So this isn't for views either. This is actually almost a spot where I can process things out loud. And you can kind of go along with me on this journey as I'm going through, because I'm ultimately in search of truth wherever it resides, everywhere it resides. So here is where I process. Here is where we go on this little trip towards truth. And that's the point of this podcast. There's a lot of different things and a lot of different angles and a lot of different things that I've seen, especially lately, So we have a run. We have a run coming up. And yeah, so hopefully you stay along with the ride and we keep it going and we go from there. I didn't leave to build something in secret. I left because my father died and everything changed. The grief, leaving my church, leaving corporate, all of it cascaded from spiritual attacks that led to one 5:27 a.m. phone call. And through all of it, I learned what actually matters. We don't have as much time as we think. Death is coming for us all. And there's no time to waste on things that don't matter. So, I'm done wasting time. I'm building what God called me to build. I'm teaching what I've learned. I'm being honest about the mess. Because at the end of it all, I just want to hear one thing. Well done, thy good and faithful servant. And I'm asking you to come with me. Not because I have it all figured out, because I don't. But because I walked through the fire and I know what's on the other side. Welcome back. Or just welcome. Either way, let's go get it. Until next time.